Are you looking for a real estate contract that you can use in any transaction, which you can download for free? Maybe you're buying or selling a house yourself. Maybe you're a real estate agent and need to know how all of the fields need to be completely filled in correctly. Well, when you've got over 2 decades experience, it's easy. Hi, my name is Greg Owen, the principal, founder and broker of Easy Realty, and today I'm going to show you how you can download a free copy of a Florida real estate contract, or indeed any state contract. Moreover, I've been looking at the videos out there that explain how you can do this, and there's some startling omissions and errors that need to be addressed. So without further ado, we're going to get to it. Okay, so in the video description, there are links below to all of the required necessary forms and places where you can get the important information that's going to be needed to fill out all of this. And if you stay tuned to the very end of the video, I've got some free bonuses for you, whether you're an individual that are buying or selling a house, just curious, or you're a real estate agent. So make sure you watch until the end.
To start with, we're going to head over to the website realtyforms.org, which will bring you to the following page. So this is a Dropbox where we contain all the forms. These are for our real estate agents. They're all branded and you should ignore those, but we're going to head over to this one here where it says public only. And there is a couple of files that we want to look at. One of which is this where it says ownership types. You should refer to this because this is going to give us some very detailed information about how the different types of the properties can be transferred. This is what's missing from many of the other videos. So as you can see, there's sole ownership where it's a single person or a company, for example. There's tenancy by the entirety, which is for legally married couples. There is also tenancy in common. This is where, for example, you might have 50% of the property or even more, where you've got a brother and sister, for example, or another family member. So each person owns an equal share, and there's also joint tenancy. So you should read through this first to determine exactly which is the most appropriate. With joint tenancy, as you can see, it includes right of survivorship. We're going to address the issue of what happens if or when some member of the ownership passes away. In this case, right of survivorship will automatically transfer to the surviving party. So again, read through all this, decide which is the most appropriate before we even start to look at a contract. Then I want you to head over to the Osceola property, well, in this case it's but whichever county you're in, the property appraiser's website, and you want to click on this search records. Now I'm going to put in an address here which is for the local courthouse, because I don't want to there we go, Courthouse Square, because this is going to give us some very important information. So you'll see from here we have a legal, this is the seller's name, how it's recorded on here. Obviously the mailing address is listed here as well, but there's further detailed information which we're going to need on here, one of which is the legal description. So we're going to be cutting and pasting this as well. Okay, now back to our types of Dropbox file. The one we're going to look at, if you're a Florida buyer, you're going to go to this Florida as is contract. You'll click on here and you're going to download when it loads up anytime today. There it is. You can download a copy here. I have one that's already downloaded here. Okay. So when we're filling out, the seller is obviously the name that we took from the property appraiser previously. So it's Osceola County in this case. Then we're going to look at the buyer, and that's the names of the buyers. Now remember from our other document, types of ownership, how we're going to have this detailed and listed. So you can literally include any of those property ownership types, whether it be tenancy in common, tenancy in the entirety, sole purchaser, whatever it is. Then the address of the property, again, we're going to go back to our Osceola physical address and copy and paste this one from here. Next, we're going to move down to where it says the county it's located in. Well, obviously that's already done. And then the tax ID, again, we can cut from here. This is our parcel ID. It's the tax ID number and how it's copied and recorded. Next one, we're going to go along here and read through this. The real property, the legal description is again taken from here. The legal description is right down at the bottom here. We can cut and paste that so it matches that absolutely correctly. Then I want you to read through all of the terms listed in here, particularly the personal property. Now, as a general rule of thumb, the items listed here, which are the built-in items, the range, refrigerator, dishwasher, disposal, and so on, all of these are included. If any of these items are not included, they should be redacted. Now, you can add additional items which are not listed in here. So, for example, if you've done a deal where you're buying the washer and dryer, those items should be listed in here. These items are excluded from the purchase in this section here. And then we're going to move on to the purchase price. Now, this is where I highly recommend that you determine in advance who is going to be handling the legal conveyance of the property. So the purchase price simply goes in here. There's an initial deposit which is held in escrow. So the seller and the buyer will not have access to this escrow agent fee, and it goes in here. And there's a time frame about how soon this item is to be done. As you can see, if you leave it blank, then it's 3 days. The agent that's handling the transaction, be it an escrow agent, title company, or attorney's office, details should all go in here and filled in. And then if there is an additional deposit, it should be completed here if there's a further escrow deposit to be made. The amount of the financing, which we're going to come to again in a moment, but if there's a mortgage to purchase the property, that figure should go in here, and the balance to close will automatically be adjusted and entered into here. Now, it should be pointed out that this contract is effectively an offer to purchase. There is a law, and it goes back to Old English law about offer and acceptance. It is only valid once both parties agree. So you can put a time frame on here. If not signed by the buyer and completed, put the date in here. Then if it is not signed and executed, then it is not a binding and valid contract. The closing date is the date by which all of the other terms, including the financing and funding, is completed. Again, you'll notice here that we should include the buyer and seller's initialed on all 12 pages of this contract. This is the estimated closing date. They should, now you can add the words, I usually add the words on or before this closing date. If you can bring the closing forward, therefore they will, but as a backstop, we have a closing date that all of the terms have to be completed by. Now, there's a term, you should read through all of these. There's a lot of these terms. Read through in the event of the extension of the closing date. Make sure you read and understand this. Occupancy and possession, read all of that. If the property is to be rented after closing, this checkbox should be completed. Or maybe the seller is going to stay in the property after closing for a few days. That should be highlighted here. An assignability clause in item 7 is where the buyer and or seller can agree that another party can step in to the buyer's shoes. So in other words, the buyer listed on here, there should be a separate addendum and contract for this if this box is checked may assign. But ordinarily in most transactions they may not assign it, so this one is checked here. So again, if you leave it blank, it's assumed that it's non-assignable. Financing, very important. So select the appropriate box. Is it a cash transaction? Is it going to be subject to financing? Read through all of these and check the appropriate boxes. Is it fixed or adjustable, or both, or either? You've got to make a time frame. You've got 5 days, the buyer, to make the application for loan financing after the effective date, which is the date the last person, buyer or seller, signs the contract. Keep reading through all of these terms and make sure you understand everything. Again, initial, buyer and seller initials each and every page. Here we've got assumption of existing loans. So if the existing mortgage is going to be taken over by the buyer, that's where these items would be clicked. Also, if there's a purchase money, so again, see the additional items here. If the seller is going to hold a mortgage on behalf of the buyer, that should be filled out here. Here we highlight all of the closing costs and how they're to be paid. Then we've got title evidence insurance. If you leave this blank, again, 15 days is assumed. And we're going to keep going down and reading through all of this. This section here, line 168, is very important. Who is going to pay for the title insurance, and who is going to select the title company or attorney's office that will be handling the legal conveyance? If the buyer is going to designate it, they will pay some additional closing costs. If the seller selects, which is customary, then they will be paying things like the seller's title insurance. So it's an important consideration. Also, is there a home warranty? You can purchase by separate agreement a home warranty by a different company, a third-party company that will indemnify the seller against any issues that occur after the closing takes place. So let's say a few weeks after the closing, the hot water heater stops working. You can purchase a contract by a third-party home warranty company that will cover all of the costs associated with that. Special assessments may or may not apply on the seller. If there is an existing assessment, you should check the box to see who is going to be paying for all of these. There are disclosures that have to be acknowledged to do with radon gas, for example, mold, whether the property is located in a flood zone. Again, read through all of these, sign at each place. And is your property subject to a homeowners association? In which case a separate addendum will be required outlining exactly who the parties are, who the contact are, and whether or not there is a quarterly, monthly, annual fee associated with that homeowners association. FIRPTA. Make sure you understand about FIRPTA, which is the Foreign Investment Real Property Tax Act. This ensures that if the seller is a foreign national, that certain funds are held back at closing and sent to the IRS, which can be recovered either in full or in part after the seller files their annual tax. It ensures that the IRS receive any capital gains tax, an important disclosure. This here outlines about property maintenance and inspections. So typically the buyer will have a third-party home inspection company complete a full inspection on the property. Again, fill in how many days for this to take place. And if for any reason the buyer does not accept the condition of the property, the seller will have a certain amount of time in which to repair any faults that exist on the property. This, along with the financing contingency, is one of the two ways that most commonly allow for the buyer to recover their earnest money deposit and walk away from the deal. Okay, Moving on. Again, most of these, you'll see there's a walkthrough inspection that applies the day before to ensure that nothing has changed in the property since the buyer first saw it. Details of the escrow agent are listed here. Then we've got some liability issues, which again, read through all of this, make sure you understand it all. If you're in any way unsure, speak with the title company or the attorney that are handling this transaction for you. Dispute resolutions are covered, title insurance, and liens. These will be addressed as part of the closing. They have to be eliminated, and that's why the title insurance is commonly used, to ensure that the buyers are indemnified against any issues that occur. Okay, we're going through these. I know I'm going through these rather quickly, but make sure you read and understand all of these terms and conditions. If you're in any way not sure, make sure that these are covered here. These are the addenda that are attached to the contract. If any of the addenda are included, they should be highlighted, and the checkbox is listed here. And finally, we get some additional terms. If there's anything extra that becomes part of the deal, for example, some personal property is to be included by a separate agreement, you would add these items in here. And there you see the counter offer section. If the buyer submits the offer and the seller does not accept, the seller can make an offer in return, counter this offer. Now, in that event, the buyer then chooses whether to accept the seller's counter offer. Remember, offer and acceptance is legally binding. So if the seller counter offers and the buyer now accepts, you have a legally binding contract. All right, we're getting through this real quick now. Sign here on line 620 and 621 for the buyers, 622 and 23, and date it accordingly. Fill in the appropriate addresses for the purposes of notices. And again, you'll notice if there is any brokers listed on here, that's where their names will go in. When all of that is done, we're ready to move on to the next stage. Okay, folks.
Okay, well, that's going to about wrap it up for completing the form. We've got a legal disclaimer that we have to mention at the start, which is that I am not an attorney and I do not give legal advice. But as you can imagine, with over 20 years experience, I've done hundreds of these, and really, I can't recall ever having a problem. If you found the video useful, please do me a favor, hit the like button. It's going to help the channel enormously. If you're one of our real estate agents, or you want to know more about these detailed videos that we share, you should subscribe as well. Now, let's get to those important bonuses that we mentioned at the start. If you're in any way unsure about doing all of this and you need a little bit of help, well, we will do it all for you. We will prepare the document, add the necessary addenda, make sure it's all completed exactly as we would do it as real estate agents, and then we'll send it to you. All you have to do is sign it electronically. You can even use a smartphone. So it doesn't matter if you don't have a printer, a scanner, paper, toner, ink, whatever it is, you can go ahead and get it all done simply and easily. We charge $197 for the service. That's the only fee that you'll pay us. We take all major credit cards, as well as Cash App and Zelle and all those other newfangled ways of transferring money to people. And for the real estate agents out there, well, we've got something even better, because you as realtors will probably know that the Realtor Association come along every year and take lots of your lovely money. And what do they really do in return? I always thought it was nothing. So why do you pay them? So head over to thompsonbrokers.com. You can see the link on the screen. And there you can download a free guide on how to simply opt out of paying those ridiculous fees for them doing nothing. Where's the money go? They collect billions, literally billions of dollars. Where does it go? Do they show you how to find motivated buyers and sellers in real estate? or how to make any money? No. Okay, so until next time, this is Greg, the broker at Easy Realty, and we'll see you at the next one. Remember, it's easy.